The Incredible Hulk comes from the same director of Now You See Me and stars Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. A scientist goes on the run after an experiment turns for the worse, partly transforming him into a giant green rampaging monster known as the Hulk. If you haven't seen this movie in a really long time, maybe the last time you saw it was when it came out in theaters 12 years ago, I can completely understand why you would say this is your least favorite film in the MCU. And that's because, well, obviously most of what happens in this film never gets brought up again in the MCU because after this film happened, Edward Norton was no longer the Hulk anymore, Bruce Banner. It was then given to Mark Ruffalo for all the Avengers movies and Thor Ragnarok. So after the actor for Bruce Banner changed, pretty much everything that took place in The Incredible Hulk was then ruled basically non-canon. Liv Tyler, her character, is never brought up again. There is not a single storyline that takes place in The Incredible Hulk that is mentioned again after this movie, which is kind of disappointing. I do like The Incredible Hulk. I think this movie is extremely underappreciated, one of the better MCU films. It's certainly not one of the worst. If you think it's one of the worst, I beg you to go back and watch this movie again, especially if you have not seen this movie in 12 years. The release date in 2008 also did this movie no favors. The Incredible Hulk only came out just a month after Iron Man. I guarantee you most of the people that saw The Incredible Hulk in theaters had no idea this was connected to the same universe as Iron Man, and for that, this movie made $320 million less worldwide than Iron Man did back in 2008. And again, that's incredibly disappointing. I am saddened by the fact that this movie does not get the amount of praise that other origin stories do in the MCU. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys several reasons for why I do like The Incredible Hulk, why I think it's one of the better MCU films, and why I feel like it's extremely underappreciated. Right out the gate during the opening credits, this movie does something for the Hulk just like they did for Spider-Man and Captain America Civil War. Everything we already know about the beginning of Bruce Banner's origin story happens not even during the actual movie. It happens during the opening credits, which in my opinion is great. If I already know what happens in the beginning of a character's origin story, there is no reason to repeat it once again. I don't need to see Bruce Banner becoming the Hulk. We already know that's going to happen. That's what The Amazing Spider-Man did, unfortunately. They went in that route of showing, again, what happened to Uncle Ben and his early stages before becoming Spider-Man. That was a mistake on that movie's part, and The Incredible Hulk did not make the same mistake. Let's talk about Edward Norton as the first actor to play Bruce Banner in the MCU. Okay, he's not an ideal choice, just like Terrence Howard was not an ideal choice to play James Rhodes in the first Iron Man movie, but it works still. In this regard, I feel the same way about Edward Norton as I do for Terrence Howard as these two characters. He looks like a scientist and is more of a quirky, scrawny, cocky version of Bruce Banner than Mark Ruffalo, who takes a less serious approach to the character and is mainly there for comic relief, and also hides his intellect. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner in the MCU plays a character that acts more dumb, when in reality we know he's not dumb, he just plays it like that. Edward Norton is not similar in this way whatsoever. He's a completely different Bruce Banner than Mark Ruffalo is, which is completely fine. Eric Bana, the same for him. As for the look of the Hulk in this 2008 film, it's spectacular. It doesn't look like the cartoon version of the big green monster we got in the 2003 Hulk movie. This rendition of the Hulk is far better, looks a lot more realistic, and it's crazy because the Hulk we got in this film looks almost identical to the Hulk we got in Avengers Endgame, and what's nuts is those movies are 11 years apart in age. But the action in The Incredible Hulk is probably where I have the most amount of fun while watching this movie. Just seeing the Hulk shred through military is more fun than any scene we got in Iron Man 2. It's intense. Hulk causes a lot of casualties, which people don't talk about too often when it comes to the Hulk character, but yeah, he always kills a ton of people and nobody speaks about it, which is weird. And of course, there's a ton of destruction caused by the Hulk. I have a blast with the action in the film. Even when it's just Bruce Banner running away during these chase scenes from the military, I have a lot of fun with those scenes too. The action in this movie, I think, is some of the better action in the MCU to date. What about Tim Roth as this film's main villain? Sure, he's one-dimensional like one of the other villains we get in this movie that I'll touch on in just just a second. But you know what? He's just an ordinary military man following orders, and he's good at his job. He's the perfect yin to Norton's yang and is just a total badass throughout the duration of The Incredible Hulk. Even when Tim Roth is in human form in this film, he's not afraid to stand toe-to-toe with the Hulk when he's the raging green monster. It's crazy. I don't know how this guy is not intimidated by somebody who is 10 feet taller. Plus, the ending fight between the Hulk and Abomination in New York City is quite fun too. I don't see why people don't like that scene. Yeah, it is a CGI mess, but it's a fun CGI mess. The other villain I was talking about earlier though is General Thaddeus Ross. And this guy, he just wants to weaponize the Hulk's powers. Obviously, we've seen a storyline like this before several times in Hollywood when a movie involves the military. Someone in the military will see a superpower or some super weapon, and they'll try to weaponize it for the military and use to their advantage, but somebody else is like, no, you can't do that, that's evil. Yeah, the same storyline like that happens in this film, and it does feel quite repetitive of other things we've seen before. But I'll give his character a pass because the general is Bruce's girlfriend's daughter in the film, which does give this movie a bit more weight between the main villain and Bruce Banner. Like I said though, I do understand why so many people are quick to say that this is the worst movie in the MCU because pretty much everything that happens in The Incredible Hulk is no longer a part of the universe after this movie, which really sucks. And also you have those two one-dimensional main villains in the film, which doesn't help this movie's case. A few other reasons for why I feel like this movie is not a favorite for most people in the MCU compared to the other films in this universe. For one is the romance between Liv Tyler and Edward Norton's Bruce Banner. It does kind of play second fiddle to everything else going on in the film, just like in Thor between Jane and Thor. Their romance doesn't always feel as strong as it could. Their romance is just kind of a side thing to get more money, bring more of those people to the theater who love seeing romances on the screen. It's just there to make the movie more money, and also there is a lack of true emotion. I can definitely agree with that in The Incredible Hulk. That's partly due to how this movie focuses more on its non-stop action-packed adventure scenes rather than focusing more on its characters and story building. Yeah, the movie does have some flaws in that regard as well. I can agree with that. But everything I mentioned before getting into the main problems I have with The Incredible Hulk gives this movie a pretty long list of good things that happens in this movie. We have some good characters, good performances, good storytelling and action sequences. Edward Norton, I actually prefer over Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner / the Hulk. And that's a very, very unpopular opinion, I know, but that's just how I feel, and the same goes for Terrence Howard as James Rhodes over Don Cheadle. For me, I just like those unconventional choices to play characters like Bruce Banner and James Rhodes in these movies. I think they can work really well, even better than the regular choices you would opt for, like Mark Ruffalo and Don Cheadle to play those characters nowadays. If you haven't seen The Incredible Hulk before or haven't seen this movie for a really long time, I implore you to go back and rewatch this film again because it's not as bad as some other people believe. At the very least, if you hate this movie, you can just have it on in the background and just say, oh, The Incredible Hulk's on, okay. I mean, I can watch it, it has some entertaining scenes, but if you're like me and can just accept the fact that Edward Norton does not come back after this film and that pretty much every single thing that happens in this movie is just disregarded by Marvel and Disney, it's fine because you can just enjoy this movie for what it is, a small little independent film that was made here by Universal and Marvel. I like The Incredible Hulk a lot. I think it's a darn good movie. I'm giving The Incredible Hulk from 2008 a 76%. Something else that's funny about the character of the Hulk is that so many people always talk about the character of Spider-Man getting recasted 2 times over the course of 9 years. First we had Tobey Maguire last playing Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3, and then we had Andrew Garfield, and then in Civil War we got Tom Holland. But people never talk about the Hulk getting recasted 2 times as well over the course of 9 years. First, they had Eric Bana in the film Hulk in 2003, and then, of course, Edward Norton in this film, and then eventually Mark Ruffalo in the first Avengers movie. But that's just something that I always thought was pretty funny. Alright, do you guys also like The Incredible Hulk? Do you guys hate it? Be sure to let me know down below in the comment section what your thoughts are of it. If you're new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.